Welcome back to the channel. Welcome to week 18 of the NFL. We are to the final week of the regular season. Another year has flown by. We got another video jam-packed full of free picks for you guys here today. It's going to be a little more of a shortened video as compared to previous weeks. Just not a lot of games on the slate this week that truly matter for all the teams involved. Just a handful of games with playoff implications. So lots in the air, as far as who's playing, how big of a role they'll play, things like that. So, gonna play it a little more conservative this week for sure. Like I said, gonna be a smaller video with a little less picks than what we typically are throwing out there. But before we dive into week 18, let's go ahead and take a look at week 17 and how that went down. And it was a week, man. We've ended up putting out 3 different videos with the games spread out the way that they were, and combined through those 3 videos, we end up going 7-7. Had a really good video in the middle there, going 5-2. Profiting on the day. Other 2 days were a little meh, right? Between Monday Night Football went 1-1 and then 1-4 on Christmas Day, right? Like I said, man, in the previous video, the Grinch came and stole all my presents on Christmas Day as far as betting is concerned. So 7-7, not what you want to see end of the day. Didn't really win any money, didn't really lose any money, just kind of broke even, right? So we're looking to get profitable here in week 18 to finish out the season. We are sitting at a 74-52 record with 1 push in there on the year so far. We are up over 16 units. So let's stack on those 16 units real quick before we head into the playoffs. So let's go ahead and jump over to Outlier. We'll dive into the first pick for today. And that first play I'm going to be looking at, it's going to be in that Bengals-Steeler game Saturday night. And we got the Browns and the Ravens, right, at 4 o'clock. Then we got the Bengals and the Steelers. It's just all about the AFC North on Saturday. And just for the record, man, I am leaning under in that Browns and Ravens game. I just can't get there to pull the trigger, man. I don't know, man. Go ahead and check the pinned comment at the end of the day. Right before the game time, I might slide that one in there. I can't get there right now, man. I'm not sure. So I'm not going to talk about that one. We're going to go ahead and dive into this game. I'm looking at the under here, too. This line's sitting at 47.5. And if you take it there, you take the under at 47.5, it's actually plus money. I like it to be a little bit safer, man. I like to bump that up to 49.5 and get it at minus 125. Reason being, man, I took a look back in their last 10 games, head to head, they have gone under this 49.5 mark at a 70% rate. So I like that a lot because everything else is pointing to these two teams putting up a ton of points, and that don't make sense, right? But I mean, you look at it on the year, the Bengals are 69% to the over, boasting a pretty strong offensive attack, right? 6th in scoring, the number 1 passing unit in all of football against a defense that has had some troubles through the air. But the thing is, they're 23rd in terms of passing yards, but they can get after the quarterback, and that's where they cause issues always when they face the Bengals and when they face Joe Burrow. Right? And they are first in turnovers. So, and Burrow said it in the press conference, man, when you play the Steelers, at some point, they're going to force you into a mistake. They always do. And you just have to find a way to limit those mistakes as much as possible, right? And they do it with pressure on the quarterback. TJ Watt back there, Alex Highsmith. There's a lot of Cam Hayward, a lot of hands back there on deck to be able to get after the quarterback. And they got a great secondary. And when we faced each other earlier in the year, it was a 44-38 explosion, right? At the beginning of December, 1st of December, actually. So about a month ago now. Well, when we look at that too, though, the Steelers had a lot of injuries there on the defensive side of the ball. I definitely think that attributed to that explosion on offense. And obviously the Bengals defense was still struggling mightily at that time, giving up 44 and then 34 and 35 points in the weeks before that. So a big stretch there, just with a ton of points being given up by the defense. And it's not like this defense has played lights out since then, but they have definitely made improvements along the way. They're forcing turnovers in critical moments. And with this game, there's just so much on the line, right? You got the Bengals playing to stay alive. They obviously got to get the win. They need a Chiefs win and a Jets win, and they sneak into the playoffs. The Steelers, on the other hand, are fighting for the division. If the Ravens lose, which is unlikely, but if they do, and the Steelers can pull out a win here, they get that AFC North Division title, and with that comes the 3rd seed and a home playoff game. So both teams have a lot to play for here, and no matter what, these are 2 bitter rivals, right? So I don't expect to see a 44-38 shootout like we saw in Cincinnati earlier this year. I expect to see more, this is week 18. This has serious playoff implications. Seeding on one side, just getting in on the other side. This I expect to be a more typical AFC North slugfest. Mike Hilton came out and said it earlier too this year, or this week. I think actually today. I have no sense of time right now. Mike Hilton came out and said, like he expects this one to be a bloodbath, and I do too, man. This is like I said, AFC North football. It's cold. It's going to be what, in the 20s. There's a great chance of snow for this game as well. So there's the weather aspect of it. I like the under here. Long story short, you can get it at minus 125 over at ESPN Bet at this 49.5. But like I said, you can get that right now. That line's sitting at 47.5, and that is plus money, plus 100 over there at ESPN Bet. If you like the under and you really like the under, I wouldn't talk you off of this 47.5 at plus money. But for me, man, if I can get it at, I can get a couple more points and I'm not paying a ton of juice, I'm getting at minus 125. That's the route that I want to take here because you always have that potential for, it's the Bengals. They have a crazy bad defense. They got a crazy good offense. So you always got that potential for a high scoring game, no matter what analogies I throw out there or what analysis, you know what I mean? So got to be a little cautious here with this one. That's the route that I'm looking at it, but I do like this under end of the day. All right, next up, I'm looking at a player prop in the Washington Commander Dallas Cowboy 1 p.m. kickoff game. I'm looking at Jayden Daniels, quarterback of the Commanders, his rushing yards over 46.5. We can get this at minus 110 at BetMGM and Bet365. Currently, they have the same odds right now. If we look down here at this insight from Outlier, guys, we can see he's exceeded this 46.5 mark in 4 of his last 5 games when facing these bottom 10 defenses. If we look over here, the Cowboys definitely fall in that bottom 10. Man, they're actually bottom 5, sitting at 29th out of 32 teams in the league. And against the quarterback position, it gets worse. They drop down to 30th. So definitely not a good look there for Dallas. If we look at Jayden in his last 5 games, we can see he's hit this at an 80% rate as well, hitting 4 out of 5. And we've seen that number just go up the last 3 weeks, right? So he's definitely been utilizing that quickness with his feet. And we look at it head-to-head. Last time they played the Cowboys, November 24th this season, he smoked them for 74 rushing yards. So definitely like this one here for Jayden Daniels. If we scroll on down, let's look at the rush attempts, right? The share. We see Brian Robinson is sitting there at 182 rushing attempts, leading Washington. Jayden Daniels is right underneath of him, your starting quarterback, sitting at 144 rushing attempts, right? 28% of that rush share belongs to the starting quarterback. So definitely that 1-2 punch between him and Robinson, and I like him to continue that here this week. So Jayden Daniels over 46.5. Like I said, minus 110 at BetMGM and Bet365. All right, next up, I'm looking at that huge game, probably the biggest game. Not probably, this is the biggest game of the week. Sunday night, Minnesota at Detroit for the number 1 seed in the NFC. Winner takes the NFC North division as well, but obviously that number 1 seed and the bye. Both of these teams come in with a 14-2 record. Wow, right? The Vikings have won 9 straight now. The Lions are coming off of 2 straight. After that loss to the Bills, they have bounced back with 2 straight wins now. The thing for me here is all the injuries on the Detroit side. We talked about it in the Monday Night Football video last week. All those injuries on that defensive side of the ball. So you scroll on down here, you look, man, this is not a shabby Minnesota offense by any means, right? Sitting at 9th in terms of scoring, 10th in red zone efficiency, 5th in terms of passing yards. And that Detroit defense is sitting at 31st in terms of passing yards allowed. And couple that with all the injuries that they've accumulated over these last few weeks, man, I think that spells kind of a recipe for disaster. And then you flip it over here. Obviously, Detroit has a dominant offense sitting at 1st in terms of scoring and top 5 in just plenty of other categories, right? 2nd in passing, 6th in rushing. But this is not a shabby Minnesota defense by any means. They're sitting at 4th in terms of scoring, holding their opponents under 20 points per game. 4th in terms of third down conversions. Now, they are a little susceptible to the pass, right? Sitting at 28th, but they have the 2nd best rushing defense in the league. They get after the quarterback as well, and that's going to help in that passing game, sitting at 3rd in sacks, 5th in hits, and 3rd in QB hurries. And they are also tied for 1st in turnovers. So a lot playing into that Minnesota's defense favor, right? I like it a lot. They are sitting at plus money here, plus 130. Now, head-to-head, the Lions have had the Vikings number. This shows right here, outlier 3 in a row for the Lions, right? They've actually won 4 straight. We can flip over here and we can see that they've won, 4 straight, 5 of the last 6. So the Lions have definitely had their number here for the last few years. Man, that last game, though, that 31-29 win for Detroit this season was a nail biter. It was one that they had to pull out literally in the last seconds with a field goal, right? They held a 21-10 lead in that one and let Minnesota get back in that game and take the lead. And then Detroit was able to pull it away with that late second field goal, like I said. So this was a very well, uh, evenly matched game, and that was pre-injuries for Detroit, right? So I think Minnesota, man, they're just the healthier team here, and they're 14-2 for a reason. I think everybody all season long was waiting for the Vikings to fall off, myself included, and it just has not happened. Honestly, they've just gotten better as the year's gone on, and they've done it under the radar quietly all season. I think they make some noise here in Week 18, man, and they put a stamp on what an excellent season to finish this thing out 15-2 with the number 1 seed. All right, and lastly, I'm looking at a parlay. We're going to call this the Triple Crown Parlay. Go ahead and comment Triple Crown down below, guys. Looking at my guy, Ja'Marr Chase, man, to get enough receptions, get enough yards, and cap it off with a touchdown, man, to hopefully get him that Triple Crown as this season comes to an end. So I'm looking at him over 5.5 receptions at first. Obviously, this is super juice because we're looking at it for a parlay purposes. I like him to get 6 receptions. We can see he's done this at a 100% rate in the last 5 games. Let's just keep pushing it back further, and we can see that he's been crushing this line, right? 90% in the last 10, and on the season hitting at a 75% rate, 12 out of 16 times. And he did hit over this mark when they played Pittsburgh earlier this year, hitting at a exactly 6. So obviously Pittsburgh plays Ja'Marr tough. They always have, they always will. But I'd like him to get 6 receptions here at least, as he looks to keep that distance between him and St. Brown from Detroit. He's got an 8-catch advantage over him right now. So, they talked about that as well in that press conference with Burrow at the beginning of the week, man. He said that he was going to really gun to get him this. Obviously, they're going to look to get the win above all else, but obviously throwing the ball to Ja'Marr is going to help you get that win. So we look down here too. For as great as this Pittsburgh defense is, like I said, they have had some issues through the air. They are sitting at 19th in terms of receptions allowed, and against wide receivers specifically, they are sitting at 18th. So not like that gets a whole lot better. So I like this as the first part of this Triple Crown parlay, over 5.5 receptions. And then we'll look at his yards next. I'm looking at him to get over 69.5, so 70 yards receiving. Now, we can see also that he has hit this at a 100% rate in his last 5 games. We can go ahead and scroll that back to the last 10. He's hit 7 in a row, 70% in those last 10 as well. And then on the season, he's hitting this at a 69% rate. 11 of the 16 games played, he has hit at least 70 yards or more. So we definitely like to see that. If we look over here at this insight from Outlier, his line sitting at 92.5, and we can see that he has exceeded that in 4 of his last 5 games. He's actually averaging 111 yards per game in those last 5 games. So obviously Chase has been killing it. He's been on fire these last few weeks. And we look over here as well. Like I said, Pittsburgh against the pass, a little bit of issues. Receiving yards allowed, they're sitting at 23rd. And then against the wide receiver position specifically, also sitting at 23rd. And then we're going to go ahead and scroll up. Let's look at Ja'Marr on an anytime touchdown. Now, this one I honestly like as a single too. And that reason being is that he's sitting at 16 touchdowns right now. I really look for Joe to look his way, right? 17 touchdowns is the franchise record, 4 touchdowns in a season by a receiver, set by Carl Pickens back in the 90s. So I definitely think that that's something that if they find, they find any kind of hole, any kind of gap, any kind of way to get Chase the ball in the end zone, obviously they're looking to do that anyways, but there's just that added layer too. So I like this almost as a single as well. I might play it as a single as well, this one, but definitely playing it as a parlay, throwing this in as the last leg. Now this one, feels a little scarier, right? Touchdowns against for Pittsburgh sitting at 11th, wide receivers sitting at 6th. Head to head, he did score on them earlier this year when they did play. He grabbed 1 touchdown. And on the year, obviously, like I said, he's hit 16 touchdowns on the season, had multiple multi-score games, a 3-score game against Baltimore. Dude's been killing it, right? 63% rate that he has found the end zone 10 out of 16 games so far this season. Now, guys, that is going to wrap it up. I hope you enjoyed the content today. I hope you found it helpful and useful. And if you did, please do not forget to smash that like button down below and hit subscribe if you have not already. That way you don't miss out on any of the action that is going down here on Guy Boston on a daily. And that's going to do it, guys. Hope we have a great week 18. Wrap this season up with some green check marks and some more profit on the board. And let's go into the playoffs with some great momentum. I'll see you guys on the next video.